Hard Turn is presented by Overlake Medical Center and Clinics.
Life is full of big moments of change and transformation where we have to pivot on our path.
Those moments come with a wide variety of emotions, from fear and anxiety to joy and relief.
I'm Kelly Koopmans.
And I'm Mary Nam.
And this is Hard Turn. Welcome, everybody, to Hard Turn. I'm Kelly Koopmans.
I'm Mary Nam.
You know, Washington, we're here in Seattle, of course, is known for a few things. We're known for rain, coffee.
Sleepless in Seattle.
Sleepless in Seattle, one of my favorite movies.
Oh,
I'm a sucker.
classic.
I'm a sucker for it.
It holds up, by the way.
Tom Hanks, Meg Ryan.
I know.
They got some magic. Coffee, music, and apples.
Of course.
We are known for apples.
Honestly, that was my second.
Yeah. What are apples key to? But to cider. And we're talking the alcoholic variety of cider. It's booming these days.
Oh, selection is crazy right now.
All kinds of flavors. You can get it sweet, dry, berry flavors. You name it, they got it. But, you know, we've touched on a lot of different types of beverages on this show and other people who are leaders in their industry. We had Katie Nessel, who focused more on non-alcoholic beverages. We had Jen and Jerry talking about wine.
This was not planned. It just happened this way. The first season has been beverage heavy.
What is on our minds?
I
don't know. Must be a Friday, maybe. But anyway, today we're talking to Caitlin Brom. And Caitlin is a leader in the cider industry. She is the CEO and founder of Yonder Cider. Have you heard of Yonder?
Yes. The label just popped into my head. Whoa. Okay. That's cool.
Yes. It's very aesthetically pleasing. And it tastes good, too. So born right here in the Seattle area and in Wenatchee, where they harvest all of their own apples. It's based in Wenatchee, which is the apple capital of the world.
What?
That's according to Google.
I thought it was Yakima Valley. Really? Wenatchee.
There we go.
Okay.
We go. Now, Caitlin, she's worked in the beverage industry for more than 12 years. Here's what I love about her. She has a business mind. She can come up with the best marketing plan in the biz and drive a forklift.
That's pretty cool.
Lifting all these pallets of apples. And that was never something that she originally saw herself doing. This is just one of those skills that she eventually came into. She's originally from the Midwest, but lives in Washington, splitting her time evenly between Seattle and Wenatchee. So first of all, when you think about cider, what are some of your opinions? Would you ever pick it out of a lineup when you're offered beer or wine or another maybe non-alcoholic?
Here's the truth. In the beginning, I did not, because I always found cider to be too sweet. But nowadays, it's been a couple years now. The whole creation of dry ciders for people that didn't like sweet ciders, that's really opened my eyes.
Yeah. And that's one thing that they really specialize in. If you like the sweet ciders, they got those options. You like a drier variety, they have that too. But, I want to take you right to Caitlin's hard turn. And I love this because it is the moment that she decided she was going to create her own cider company and build it from the ground up. Now, she had worked in the beverage industry for several years before this. But, she was kind of feeling disillusioned about it. She got out of the game and she was like, I'm not going to work in the beverage industry anymore. I'm not going to work in cider. She stuck to that for a while.
Okay.
Until one time she was sitting on a couch, as
all the
so
epiphanies
often do. Yes.
On the couch.
And that is exactly what she had. She had an epiphany. She was sitting on the couch with her husband in their Greenwood home here in Seattle. And she went from, not only is she not done working in the beverage industry, oh no, she's going to start her own.
I had been working at Boston Beer and had left there in October of 2019. I had previously been a president of another cider company, and I was like, I'm going to take some time off from doing that. I want to just be an employee and work for a company, a corporation, and see how that goes. Turns out it didn't work out the best for me as far as a good fit. And so I looked at my husband one day and I was like, I think I want to start my own cidery. And he said, we've all been waiting. We all knew. And I was like, what do you mean? He's like, everyone who knows you were going to start your own thing someday.
Okay, so I love her husband's reaction here.
Me too.
An epiphany for her, and for him, it's like, duh. You were built for this. You were made for this. And what a a validating experience, I think, for her in that moment of being like, yeah, this is in you. You got this.
I love that.
Just out of nowhere. In fact, one time when she was telling me this story the first time, she even said, I said I was not ever going to work in cider again. And then voila, she decides to start this massive endeavor of starting her own company. So I love this big aha moment. And that's something that I think sometimes you need. Sometimes you need someone, in Jen and Jerry's conversation, there was a lot of talking together about the pros and the cons and all this stuff. And then in this case, her husband's like, yeah, just do it.
And the other takeaway for me is that sometimes you just don't know that about yourself until you do it, right? And so when she said she was going to step in and work for a corporation, there's something very convenient about that lifestyle. You don't have to worry about anything else. You just show up and they take care of everything. It's so different than running your own company.
Or being a president or, let alone a CEO or a founder and all these things. So anyway, this big aha moment comes in October of 2019.
Oh, if only.
If only.
That crystal ball.
Yeah. Because, the world had other plans.
Oh, gosh.
So, of course, just a couple months later, January of 2020, she really got down to creating Yonder. But as we know, 2020, February, March, things start to happen and the pandemic hits. So she's really faced with this decision. And should I just pump the brakes on this whole project? I've barely started. So do we pump the brakes on this thing and just wait until this resolves itself? For however long that's going to be, or keep going. And she decided, pandemic or not, we're going to keep going, which is wild.
But how do you keep going when there's nothing? I mean, the supply side, wasn't it all shut down? Like, how did she?
So she's going forward with building her business plan.
The plan,
getting it all laid together.
Got it.
Getting all that groundwork laid before it can actually launch. Now, it was not an easy decision to start in the middle of a pandemic, of course. Taking on a small business is a huge task. But here's what she had to say about that part.
It was a tough decision, and it wasn't taken lightly because running companies is not for the faint of heart, and running small businesses is not for the faint of heart. And I had done that for years, and I had helped other people grow. And, you sit down and you are like, a 9-to-5 sounds great. A consistent paycheck sounds great. Weekends and holidays sound great. And when you know what running a small business takes, those things are not guaranteed and they take a long time to gain back. And so, it wasn't taken lightly. But the thing that drew me to it is that I knew we could do something different, not only from a cider standpoint, but from a culture standpoint, from a company standpoint, from a taproom standpoint. I knew we had something that would be totally different than what was in the market and what was available to people, and a culture that didn't really exist within the beverage world very strongly. And those things, being able to create those things is what drew me to, start my own cidery and get back in the game. In the beverage world, only 6% of beverage companies are owned by women. It's a really small percentage. And that is something I wanted to change. I wanted more people that looked like me, that, more females running companies. And so that was a part of it, but also a really diverse team.
Okay, so what about that? 6% of beverage companies are owned by women.
I did not know it was that low.
So I love this idea of, I know we have something different here. There is something that I can make a difference. I, Caitlin, can make a difference by creating a company in a vision of what I would want to see.
Yeah.
Owned by women, run by women, and including all different parts of the population, but recognizing that you have something special and going forward with that takes a lot of guts.
And she's not just talking about bringing something new to the market. It was this whole company philosophy. There's so many different things that she knew that she could bring that just didn't exist.
I mean, honestly, when you picture, let's picture a beer company or something. I picture a burly dude in a flannel shirt. I don't know, making his IPA and his beard. This is what comes to mind. You don't immediately picture a woman running this thing.
That's true.
And she recognized that, and so she wanted to change it. So here she is. She's leading the charge, putting an emphasis on adding diversity to their employee base. So she's the first person to say that production is not typically built for women because you're harvesting these apples, you're organizing these types of things. There's the business side. There's also a physical side that goes into it. And she says this this is not built for women, but I'm going to build it. And that's exactly what she did. I know I mentioned
The forklift.
I know.
That immediately came to mind.
Don't you love that vision?
I can totally picture this.
If we go back to the pandemic, and she talked about that she had launched a previous cider company and worked in some other brands, particularly in marketing. That's what she's really good at. She knows how to build a marketing plan. She knows the importance of the visuals and all this
She's
stuff.
so well-rounded, Kelly.
No, she's
Wow.
Yeah, she has a wicked business mind, She's proven that through all these other endeavors and clearly has the confidence to take this on. So she has this whole playbook that has worked before with launching these other brands, but that playbook doesn't work in the middle of a pandemic. So she has to get creative here. She has just started Yonder. Very small, getting it organized, but the wheels are in motion. So they have a very little bit of production happening, but they don't have a place to get it out to people. So what do? They can't use their warehouse or their tap rooms that they were building. What do you do in the middle of a pandemic? She came up with a creative solution.
I knew what we were going to do. We were going to open a tap room. We were going to grow. We were going to get a distributor. We're going to do all of those things. But the pandemic hit and tap rooms were closed. Restaurants and bars were closed. Nobody could go anywhere. And it really made us step back and again, think about, should we go forward or should we kind of rewrite this a little bit? And we decided to rewrite it. We live in the Greenwood Finney Ridge neighborhood, and we kept going with Yonder, and we had signed with the distributor, which was really exciting. But again, bars and restaurants were closed, so that was a pretty small sales outlet for us. But we live on a Stay Healthy street, which is it was closed down during the pandemic to cars, and it was just pedestrian only. So everybody could stay 6 feet away from each other. And one day my father-in-law was over and he's like, man, look at all these people walking by. You should just sell this stuff out of your garage. And the passing comment was kind of a laugh. And then a couple of days later, we were like, do you think we could? Do you think that's possible? And so that's how Yonder Bar was born.
It takes creativity.
You know who else did that?
Who?
She and Jeff Bezos both sold things out of their garage, evidently. That's amazing. I remember her story. I remember when we did stories during the pandemic, how people were trying to survive and socialize with the whole 6 feet. And it was crazy, but it brought people together, what she did.
Yeah, and it goes back to Brady's episode, the chef at KOMO, because when he was working at Canlis, all these businesses that rely on people coming to them and doing something as personal as feeding them or giving them a drink, and you can't do that. So how do you bust out of this?
You had to pivot.
Yeah, you have to pivot. And there were a lot of questions around this. So we have a garage. How do we do this? Do we work with zoning? Do we work with the health department? So what they actually did is, their garage, there was a motorcycle in it at the time. And it was her husband's woodworking shop. And woodworking shop.
They need the space.
Yep, and see a motorcycle. Anyway, they called the zoning department, the health department, the liquor control board, and all of those people were like, why not? It hasn't really been done like this before, but give it a try. And it was wildly successful. As you mentioned, we did all those stories on it. But it was the storefront. I remember I went and stopped by because it felt like...
Did you?
It felt like one social thing we could do.
Yeah.
To see another human.
To do that, yeah.
Yeah.
Other humans.
So anyways, really well received and very creative. It got their product out so people could try it, kept bringing more people back. There were some people who didn't like it so much.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, okay.
There was a neighbor that tried to get them shut down. Probably didn't like all the people coming by or it being a quote-unquote
in the pandemic, yes,
bar scene.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
But she really Caitlin calls this a beautiful thing. And what a great way to temporarily get through a really big problem when you had just started your dream. But, as beautiful as it was, she also talks about having doubts, particularly in the pandemic, if this thing was even going to work.
I mean, our only outlet was selling out of a garage, and the money and time we had put into building Yonder and building a production facility in Wenatchee was a lot, and it was all ours and our friends and family. And it was scary because, again, pandemic, everybody was like 2 weeks, 2 months, 2 years. And it kept getting longer and it kept getting harder. And it just added more questions every single day. And they're, 6 months in when we have somebody trying to shut down Yonder Bar and bars and restaurants are like kind of open, but not really. And we have all this money and time into something that I'm so passionate about. And we are so passionate about, the team's so passionate about. It was pretty scary. And You don't want to like start down a road and a dream and make this big change and make this big decision to have it not work out. Nobody wants that. But we just kept pushing through and kept pivoting. And I think for Yonder, that's all we ever know. I always say, like, we already did the really hard part. It keeps getting interesting and it keeps getting more challenging, but we did the really hard part. And if we could make it through that and survive and grow and create this community, I am just so excited to see where we can go from here. And I love that I have a team that is always willing to pivot with me.
You know, this podcast is all about change. And oftentimes in these stories, we focus on one specific moment. But what I love that she acknowledges here is that pivots or hard turns aren't one and done. Mm-hmm. Just because you make one hard decision or one big change, that does not mean that there isn't another one right around the corner. So I love how she's talking about if you build that team around you that's going to pivot with you again and again and again. Not saying, you know, oh, look, we did the hard thing one time, we're good. But to keep doing it, keep pushing that envelope and keep the innovation going.
And a huge element of risk-taking, because her acknowledging no one knew how long the pandemic was going to last. You can't make a so-called educated guess, you know, a business risk. Like if you knew, oh, this is going to last 3 months, I can, you know, brace for it and do it this way. At the time, it was a big question mark, and she still went ahead. And also carrying, it sounds like, the support of other people. It wasn't just herself. She said her family, maybe other people had helped her out. And she didn't know it was going to happen, but she made the leap.
And really, it's that bit of creativity that got them through the pandemic. Eventually, Yonder Bar did shut down, but
The garage bar?
The garage bar shut down, but they were able to get back into business and continue with some of those original plans once things opened up after the pandemic. They were able to open tap rooms, which was their initial plan. Mm-hmm. They were able to recently open a tap room over in Wenatchee. And really, all they've been doing is growing since that time, which I think is a great lesson of perseverance. Getting through that really tough part to push through. And if you can get through that other side, that there's opportunity there.
At Overlake Medical Center and Clinics, we offer the full spectrum of care for every stage of life. And with our skilled and compassionate physicians and care teams, it's so much more than a place to get better. It's where you can achieve a lifetime of good health. Welcome to Overlake, where your care is our passion. For more information, visit overlakehospital.org.
So, you know, spoiler alert, it was really successful. They opened up 4 years ago. So they're 4 years old, and they just opened up a new tap room, which is their third one, and this one's in Kashmir, Washington. They also just launched in California.
Oh, they're out of state now, too?
Oh, yes.
Wow.
California is their fourth state, and that's like 3 states in one because it is a biggie. And when I was talking to her about getting ready to launch for that, she was like, I don't know that I ever would have imagined we'd go from, you know, our
garage to California
bar to 4 states, including California. I mean, you walk around pretty much any grocery store in this area and
it's there. Yonder is there.
They press all of their own apples. They bring in around 1,200 bins of apples, around 1,000 pounds per bin. So this is a lot of physical labor too. It adds up to about 4 million pounds of apples. Really, it's a lot of love that goes into all of this. And I asked, what lesson exists for other people to take away from her story?
It's the same lesson I always tell everyone when they ask me, like, how'd you get into cider? Or how'd you learn all this? It's to never stop asking questions. I do not know everything. And I am the first to say that. I just had to have somebody explain to me what type of outlet we're putting into a tap room, you know? And I asked the question and now I have that information. I'm never afraid to say when I don't know something. And that's all I can tell anyone is like, don't be afraid to ask. You'll gain that knowledge. You'll learn. Ask somebody to help you. Ask somebody to teach you. And I think that's the reason we're here today is that if I had given up because I didn't know and I didn't call everyone I knew to figure out how to do it and how to fix it, we wouldn't be here. And so it's that humility, it's that reaching out, it's that using your network that you could never, ever replace. And there's just nothing like it. And it's amazing how willing people are to help you. It's amazing how people get excited about what we're doing and want to be a part of it.
I think it's the humility. Oftentimes we hear from people about come up with the creative thing or, something where you're really focusing on yourself that you can do. But her being able to say, have humility, know your own limits and what resources you can tap to fill that gap. I think for me, humility is something that I have really had to learn over time. In our business just starting out, if I had a question, I didn't want to ask because it revealed that I did not know. And so I would much rather hunker down and dig and try to figure out how to do it rather than just ask any wealth of information of people around me who had been in the business a while. And I think that it has come with time that, you find that you can get much more valuable information from another human.
Sure.
And admitting what you don't know doesn't make you weak, which was something that I had to kind of overcome myself.
Well, it boils down to that classic elementary school lesson, right? Like when they drill into you, there's no such thing as a stupid question. I was taught that. I think we heard that at some point in our young lives. But then you ask a question in college or high school, and they sure look at you like you asked a dumb question. And you're like,
right.
That didn't feel so good.
I think about actually one time when I was learning to read.
Oh, no, this memory's seared. Okay.
Well, yeah, I've got two of them. But one of them was I was learning how to read, and we were reading something about a TV. Mm-hmm. And I remember someone was working with me, and I said something about washing TV. It was supposed to be watching TV. And this person said, Kelly, do we wash a TV? And just the way, it made me feel in that moment like, oh no, we don't wash a TV. That was a really stupid thing to say. And I think that it's just those little moments that sometimes in life can stick with you. And that was one that stuck with me for way too long until I just I don't know, maybe it's just growing up, but you can then realize that it's okay.
You were a kid. Yeah.
I was a kid.
We all have those moments. Yes, I know. I totally agree. Yeah. One time, I had a moment.
What was your moment?
I felt like such a brainiac at first. The teacher said something. The answer was the Potomac River. I don't even know what the question was, but that was the answer. And the day before, I had done reading on my own. Big deal in 5th grade.
Yes.
And I knew it was the Potomac River. So she asked a question. My hand was the only one that shot up. But I didn't say Potomac River. I was learning to read myself, and I said the Potomac River.
Oh.
Is it the Potomac?
Dang it.
The teacher was so gracious, though.
Oh, that's
She
wonderful.
knew what I was trying to say. So she said, yes, you're right. It's pronounced Potomac, but yes, it is that river.
Yes.
But my heart was split half and half. It was like, I got it right, but I said it so wrong.
Right.
The Potomac. And every once in a while, I still think of that.
Well, and it also shows the grace that you receive from someone else on the other side of that.
Yes.
I don't think the person who told me, like, do you wash a TV? I don't think they were trying to do anything, but it's so much pressure we put on ourselves. So I think what Caitlin is trying to touch on here in my way roundabout way of circling back.
Ask those questions.
Is ask the questions and don't be afraid to show if you don't know something, because if someone else knows, they're probably going to want to help you pull it off even better than you would have if you tried to seek the answer out on your own. So humility is one thing she talks about. Another thing that I wanted to ask her about is, I think in any job, it's really demanding. Mm-hmm. She splits her time between Seattle and Wenatchee, and she's the CEO and, also doing a lot of the physical stuff here. This has to come with sacrifice somewhere. And I know that a lot of people make different sacrifices based on their job. And so I was curious, as successful as Yonder has been, I would imagine that it takes up a big chunk of time. So what sacrifices have you made? And do you feel like they have been worth it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've sacrificed a lot of personal time and a lot of family time and a lot of vacation time. And that's part of the thing. That's part of what we do. And I know that, and I know it won't always be this way. And we'll hire more people, and I won't wear 18 hats. But that is a sacrifice. And I think one that maybe isn't always looked at. I was on a panel recently, and they were talking about work-life balance. And they were like, tell me how you do work-life balance. Everybody was like, I meditate, or I run, or I book out my weekends with my family. And I was like, I don't have work-life balance because this is my baby. These are my people. I do employ 20 people now who rely on me. And so right now, that is something I've given up. And I think it's really important for people that are getting into business and making a big change to keep that in mind, because it isn't always simple and it can be a lot. But I would take that a lot, and I would take those challenges over and over and over again if it meant we got to do this and have this and build this.
She's very aware.
Yeah.
Extremely aware.
Yeah.
You know?
People talk so much about work-life balance as if the societal expectation is, yeah, you got to balance them. But I think what her response here is, you don't have to do anything one particular way. Work-life balance. Like, you know, if your work is everything that you're pouring it into, and you would do this time and time again, just like you're doing, then who's to say there's anything wrong with that?
I think we've talked about this before in previous episodes, and I think I've mentioned it before about the whole fallacy of work-life balance, the words that we choose to describe and define our lives, balance being one of them, and the other one being sacrifice. Because if you call something a sacrifice, then you're missing something. You're giving up something. But what if you're not giving anything up? What if you're just moving into the next chapter or phase, and that's just what it is? Because we talk about, you know, when you have kids for the first time, yes, you lose sleep. Yes, you lose your personal time. Sometimes it doesn't have to be a sacrifice. Sometimes that's just what it is.
So rather than something being like an omission that you're losing out of,
Yes.
shifting the focus on more what you are gaining.
And also just acknowledging that that's what growth and change are. Otherwise, you would never leave your current place in life.
And I also like I like how you're thinking about that. And I also really like how Caitlin is saying, she's kind of saying the same thing of you are. Like, these are my people. My life and work are all intertwined, and it is just my life. That's what I'm doing, not saying that there has to be value on one more than the other.
Yeah.
And I think that if everyone could just acknowledge that and be okay if people want to do more work or more family or some combination of anything, having to call it a balance seems to put an unrealistic bar or maybe a bar that just we shouldn't be measured by.
Yeah, exactly.
If that makes sense.
Totally makes sense.
Anyway, I think Caitlin's awesome. And then I was really curious, where does this love, because she's proven time and time again, she's really into the beverage industry, whether it's beer or cider, there's something that just keeps pulling her back. So
Yeah.
I was curious. I was like, where does this love come from? Where does this fire inside, what is it fed by? And I thought she had a really beautiful answer. So I'll share that.
I used to homebrew at home with my dad, and my dad passed away about 7 years ago. And if he was here today, he would be on a construction site with me every moment. And he would be there to cheer me on and drink the drinks. And, it's funny how things like that come back. And if you had told me again, when I went to college to be a broadcast journalist and went to business management school and that I would be running a cidery in Washington, it would have sounded insane. It means a lot to me that it is tied back to my dad. It is tied back to my family. It's tied back to my roots. And it's just so special.
So it's not only does she just
Homebrew with her dad.
Yeah, she doesn't just have a knack for this or that she's really successful or has found the right playbook, a key to success time and time again. It really comes down to a passion for her, and it traces all the way back. And what a beautiful place to be able to trace something.
She studied broadcast journalism, huh?
She
and
did.
then pivoted to brewing.
She did.
Wow. That is amazing. I'm like, am I doing the right thing, Kelly?
She's got she's just, I don't know, maybe we all want to go work at Yonder? Maybe. They seem to be expanding enough where there may be room for all.
Oh, that's such a cool thing.
Yeah, so I could tell she got a little choked up talking about that, but I think that there's something beautiful in the emotion, too, that feeds something. My dad, I think I've mentioned this before, he's always been really into, public speaking. And when I was a kid, when we would give speeches, I have this vision of practicing with him in the living room, and he would stop and tell me to slow down, take your time. And I just, from an early age, kind of like her homebrewing with her dad, for me, trying to learn how to speak in front of people and do it with confidence, that is something for me that traces back to my dad at the very beginning.
That is so cool.
And I think oftentimes, not always, but oftentimes there are things that we end up doing in our adult lives that we know can trace back because, a parent encouraged us or we had a special relationship with someone doing a thing that then blossomed over time.
Well, just like your previous interview with Brady, chef, and his memory with his grandma. You just never know at the time what's happening to you as a kid or what the fun experiences that you have that kind of pop up a decade later, 2 decades later.
This
They're
is
like, oh.
This is why I enjoy singing in my living room with my daughter. And I asked, would you like to take voice lessons, Riley? Do you want to go become a Broadway star that I could never be? I see the danger in that too, okay? Not trying to be a stage mom here.
No. I know. I think it's so funny. You know what? There's nothing wrong with planting seeds. Well, there's nothing wrong with inspiring our children.
Exactly.
Where are they supposed to get it from? If we don't do it, Lord knows, it might be YouTube. Oh, I
no.
shudder.
I shudder.
I shudder at the thought.
My goodness. Well, I just want to thank Caitlin because if you want to try Yonder, you can find it pretty much anywhere, which is just so cool to see. You know, it went from her garage, literally a couple miles away from here in Seattle, to being all over. And the tap rooms, they've got a cool vibe. It's like a family vibe. You can bring people. It's one of the things I love most about the Pacific Northwest is that tap room type of vibe where family friendly, indoor,
Super
outdoor.
family friendly. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's like that everywhere. Really quick though,
Yes,
before we
please.
wrap up, I have a question about her.
Yeah.
What's her end goal? Does she have one? Like, does she want to be in all 50 states or anything like that, or she's just happy?
You know, that would be a really good question to ask her. My hunch is that she goes with the flow.
Yeah.
And she's kind of proven that. She was very excited about California. And if she was excited about a big state like California, I think she would only be more excited by additional expansion. But, you know, as she mentioned, this is her baby. The company's her baby and these are her people. And I think as far as she can take that, and as long as it's feeding her soul and making her feel like she's doing the right thing and making space for women-owned, women-run businesses, and she's really focuses on including LGBTQ and BIPOC community into who she's hiring. It's a special thing that she's made in a space that could probably use it.
She's found huge success. I can't wait to see what she does next.
I know. Me too. All right. Thanks for joining me, Mary.
Thanks, Kelly. That was fun.
Hard Turn is a Sinclair podcast produced out of KOMO TV in Seattle, Washington. We're your hosts, Kelly Koopmans
And Mary Naum. Our show is produced and edited by Jordan Rizzieri and Brian Petrus, with engineering support from Adam Bronstein, Bill Thesh, and John Reynolds. Production support from Eric Newell.
For more information on the topics discussed in this episode and to stay up to date on future episodes, follow us on Instagram at Hard Turn Podcast and on X at Hard Turn Pod.
You can follow Hard Turn on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
Do you know someone making a big change in their life? Share this week's episode. Your recommendation helps our show grow. So spread the word.
It makes me want to go drink.
Hard Turn was presented by Overlake Medical Center and Clinics.